Hi, folks. Nick Tockard here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into our program, we have a bit to discuss. First and foremost, I want to do a big shout out to our newest Patreon member, Dawn Dulas. Dawn, thank you so much for doing what you can to help keep the lights on around these parts. It is much appreciated. I also appreciate everyone's patience. I know I'm a couple minutes late. We were having some technical difficulties due to the storm, and I had to do some things to deal with that. So we're rolling now, and we will hold on as long as the stream holds on, or about an hour, whichever happens first. But thank you. It means the whole world to me that folks can help me keep providing free training for people and buying equipment so that I can review it, so that I can buy things so you don't have to sometimes. It really is a privilege to be able to serve a community. It means the world to me. But we are also made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled the sword to teaching the art to others, as well as we are being sponsored by the Independent Creator Directory, indiecd.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, musicians, and other creatives. You can find the people who can help you make your dreams come true right there at indiecd.org. And of course, the big event of the situation. Let's see if it's listed here. It is, yes, StompCon. StompCon is, well, my banner's doing that. Hold on. StompCon is a free to the public indie tabletop gaming convention. That will be held September 7th. That's right, in just over a week, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern at the Benton County Co-op Extension, also known as the Benton County Annex, at 410 South Aidway A, Fowler, Indiana, 47944. I'm going to be running all sorts of games, art. It will just be a great time to talk to folks, to get out there and discuss the assorted projects I do all at one time. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, I just got in through the storm due to that slowed down a grocery run. So I'm still a little, hence the flush. I am okay. But today I know I had something on the docket, but I can't quite remember what it was. So we're going to probably talk about the basics, because that's what we should be talking about. When in doubt, whenever you don't know what to do, we should be talking about the basics. But before I get into that, because I want to talk about a very important concept that usually is demonstrated in Eastern systems. It's not discussed in Western systems, and it's forgotten by many newer students. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about fluidity. But first, let's see. Evening, all. Good evening. Nick, wrong brand description. Nick Knows Nerf is listed? Oh, geez. Okay, I will be fixing that after the program is over. I'm sorry about that. We're having some wonderful difficulties, but thank you, Alec. I thought I clicked that right. Oops, I can fix that relatively easily later. I just noticed out of the corner of my eye. And hello there, General Kenobi. So hi, Foxy. Hello, Alec. And hey, Thesis. And Foxy's eating tater soup. Nice, Foxy. Not as good as my mom's, but not as bad. That's not bad. Hey, Al. Hey, all. Overtask 8G. Hi, Dawn. Overtasking. Yes. A whole lot of that has been going on. So let me just put that back here, maybe. But thank you so much for joining the Patreon, Dawn. I'm really pleased with it. So it looks like I've caught up on our little chat, except, some greetings, which we love greetings around here. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Dawn. Okay, let me get this out of the way. It's fun when you're at Walmart and Geisen tornado chaser shirts go, hurry up, get that stuff, we gotta go. Yeah. Storm chasers, that's what it is. But so yes, it's good to see you all. Now, on the topic of fluidity and why it's one of the most important things that is not discussed enough in especially Western martial arts. Fluidity, for the simplest description in this case, is the ability to move consistently, smoothly, and efficiently from one guard to the next. It also determines how you perform various movements. Yes, fluidity is key. And what happens is folks will learn a kata. They will learn the set of maneuvers, and they'll want to demonstrate it, and they want to practice it, but they want to go fast. Fluidity is the embodiment of understanding, and understanding only comes with slow, controlled practice. So if you're going through your kata, and it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter what style it is, your performance, your drills, whatever. It's not that you're doing it right, it's how you're doing it. Because if you see a demonstration and somebody is stuttering through the motions, or their speed goes fast and then slow in a controlled kata demonstration thing, that implies a lack of physical control, it implies a lack of attention, or a lack of skill, and likely all three. It makes an instructor go, okay, I need to work on you because you're right there, but you're rushing. And it's one of the hardest concepts to, despite it being simple, to acquire. And it's the most beautiful thing to see when it's demonstrated in any martial style. One second. See, especially with flexible weapons, if you lose your flow, it can be dangerous. Absolutely. That's part of the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of them. I typoed the title of this thing too. Yeah, I was having some problems getting things set up. I will fix all of that later. But when we are moving forward, I don't want to see you rush, and I don't want to see you neglect the basics. And it comes down to what do I ask can people do? Many times ask the simple question. From a fencing background, can you throw a smooth shot? And people will look at me. And they may say they're accurate. They may say they're fast. And I go, accurate, we can work on. Fast, we can work on. But none of it happens before smooth. Because slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. And hello, my far-flung friend. How are you today? Rex? Guten Abend. Hallo, mein Freund. It's been a long time since I've had to even mess with German. But I could guess where you're at. I hope you're doing well. Oh, absolutely. Sword can get vitally dangerous. Oh, just absolutely deadly. And I know this because it's something, because of my nerve damage, that every day I have to fight this. Every day I have to fight going at the wrong speed that can let a twinge hit and divert what I'm doing, because I have to fight my battle. Oh, congratulations. Oh, you're home. Just got a guilty verdict on a jury trial yesterday. Go me. That is one more bad guy put away, and I'm glad to hear it. Thank you, Rex. There are very few people I genuinely consider heroic. Rex Hood is one of them, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word. There are very few people who have the courage, tenacity, and raw grit to do a tenth of what Rex does. And the fact that he has the intellect to power such high levels and the charm. Just a guy, nothing fancy over here. And yet he's still so humble. It really is quite amazing. But now that takes me back 2 years of German in high school. Indeed. But getting back to it, I will do the best I can, which may, as it has been a difficult day, not be that fluid, which is okay because I use it as a measure. See, okay, I can see. Your shot should come out even and retract. Even. You see, by me doing like this, it's disguising the actual advance. Because if you pre-cock and you telegraph, it's not smooth. It should be smooth. Well, to make it smooth, Nick, I have to go slow. Yes. But I'm just getting started. No. If you are just getting started, everybody's faster than you already. You cannot sustain speed over skill. It will always come back to bite you in the end. So what we have is a necessity to be quiet, to be smooth, to keep things right on where it needs to be. Now, I have what you're seeing. I realize you're in classic Nick. I have a Mylar blanket on the other side of this that's very, very reflective to help reflect the huge amount of light and heat that comes in. This is a west-facing wall. So I have this little goofy blanket attached to the wall now to back that so I'm not constantly getting the glare reflection because, trust me, the lighting would be nightmarish if I did that. But it also means that I have these lovely little multicolored mugs that are essentially lightly padded back that I can sit and I can pick a number and a target and go from, second over to the stripy cup or from third up to the one that says coffee backwards. By having something like that, it gives you the ability to lock on to multiple targets, and you just slowly practice identifying a target, locking on, deploying your attack, retracting, assessing what happens next, and repeating this. And see, there's a reason you suggest people train with a cutting square website. Slow targeted strikes instead of quick chaotic strikes. Now, that is... Sorry, my screen blinked for a moment. We're being kind of hammered by some pretty hefty rain and monstrous wind right now. So if the stream cuts out at any point, it is due to that. And I apologize ahead of time. But it's interesting you say that. Quick chaotic strikes. This is something really valid. At the same time, once you have become smooth with the single strikes, it leads me to the next basic conceptual failing I see across the board. And I see this a lot. Now, this does not count to Al because Al is a Olympic style fencer, where right of way is much more important. Although it does, he functions differently because the rhythm of his combos is parry, is thrust, riposte, pop, 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 pop. So it's a little. Oh, that's only in foil. That's right. Combos, yes. You want to be throwing combo shots. And I see so many SCA types. I see so many LARPies. Throw a shot, cock. Throw a shot, cock. Throw a shot, cock. And thank you. Unfortunately I lose track of that. But you should be throwing a shot and figuring where your next shot's going. So it should be bam, 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 and you're back out. So in sets of 2 or 3, the reason I drill the figure eights is it's one of the most basic sets of combos, which is high. If it's blocked, I can come down and low. If I miss, I can bring the motion around for conservation and go low without losing my momentum. I can come back up. I can turn it into a thrust. You rotate through. And it's funny because I see a lot of people who get the wheeling nature of many of the longsword styles, especially Meyer, but they don't connect the wheels to anything. So if you're going here and you're wheeling back here, okay, this is very basic. This makes sense, high guard stuff. But block, rent, pop, 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 block. You have a lot of ways, but you should always be, every position you end in, I refer to as a guard because that's what it needs to do. Okay. If I'm going from comfy third over to second, my tip is still online with, there's always a defense by intimidation, but I have knocked the sword offline optimally. This is a guard. I'm still defending this region here. The angles that would come striking in are defended. If you hit, you don't ever want to be so fast that you are completely over, your follow-through is excessive. And it doesn't matter what style. You want to be able to abort and keep that weapon moving. And the larger the weapon, the more the conservation of energy is vital. I'm going to say that one again because this is a good one for across the styles and concept. The larger the weapon, the more the conservation of energy is vital. And that's just because of basic Newtonian physics, where an object at rest tends to stay at rest, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. It takes more energy to swap those states. Okay? And you don't want to. You want to be fluid as much as you can. And that point, fluidity, is found coming all the way around, because fluidity is the birthplace of combos. It is found in the space between the panels. So when you are looking at a fencing manual, a sword manual, any stationary measure and recording of how a martial art works, they give you essentially stop points. So if you're here, 1, and then the second panel is a full extension. So 1, 2. How smoothly you throw that punch and how your body mechanics behind a punch line up is where the real skill is born. The place between the panels, guys, is so vital. And this is why I keep harping on this, because there are a few stages, not just 2, but there are a few stages in learning to sword fight and improving. At your first stage, everything is new. You're trying to do what you can with what you got. It's very cool, but it's also very, how do I want to put this? overwhelming. So you're kind of chasing. You're running after the goal, and it's counterintuitive that you have to walk consistently to get there, and that if you run, it outruns you. Now, I have known several people who wisdom has chased, and saber gold medal round. Oh, okay. No right of way. That's right. That is correct. I just derped, and I can see why I did. I've had so many foilists just pop up and scold me about the danger of not having right of way. But saber's fascinating. I still would like to see it broken into two categories. It's because I'm foils, of course. Because you were a gentleman, Al. Well, you'll see. But it is the flexibility of a saber, of a modern fencing saber, is so whippy. It's much. It's like Trelena's. She has 40 that 40 or 42 that is just very flexible. So it fights like a flexible weapon. It's there are arcs that are available that are much faster and more effective because you get a whip crack scorpion arc kind of sting from the flex in the weapon. And that makes for a very interesting bout. But it also has lost its, in my humble opinion, its connection to the actual saber. Now, I'm totally for the safety issues. I totally get that. I'm very pro-safety. But at the same time, I think a lot of the spirit of the weapon has been lost. And the styles seem, last time I was watching, it struck me, to evolve to be a much more rapid flick style than actual saber cuts. Because that's what the way the scoring works and the way the modern saber blades work. I know there was a whole thing about stiffer blades, and something I would like to see developed more. I also will say that anybody fighting with heavy rapier blades and not using hard over soft, at least body armor, is out of their ever-loving mind. I mean, it's just insane. So, yes. And it is funny because it's like two guys sharking each other. I'm just thinking about this because Al is, that's Ruxwood. I know him as Al. It's a whole thing. Is at one very nifty extreme of the people I associate with. And foilist being, in my mind, the peak of that extreme. Even though the foil predates small sword substantially, the style is much closer to small sword if you're looking at historical fencing styles than a lot of others, which makes sense. There's not a lot of guard to get in the way. You know, quillions aren't really an issue, things like that. But on one side, I have that. On another, I have my friend Amanda, who does literal cage matches in armor, and they're, jujitsu tossing themselves in armor while beating on each other, Bohurt style. It's just amazing to see the range, but at the same time, if you're paying attention, regardless of the brutality or civility of the style, there will always be a certain fluidity of motion. And I believe the more you can understand that, the more you can understand the traveling and the transverse steps and how the best get from point A to point B. That's where the real elevation of any martial art is found. And anytime I've looked into it, because I've got some young folks who've been asking questions, and they, a lot of them are anime inspired, and they're looking for, the secret martial art, the ultra secret techniques, and it's funny because it's not, none of it is what you do as much as how you do it. And of late, I've seen that really manifested in the, there's a gentleman who does instructional videos on boxing. And you could tell he's read Jack Dempsey's book. The man knows his way around a boxing ring. But he understands that a proper punch starts with a pop of the heel and adjustment of the knees to hips. You just coil your whole body. So all the motions are, when generating power, are rooted. The Dempsey roll, absolutely. And I look at that, and I look at some of the defensive training methods of coming up and around. One day I would Dempsey roll with flinch. I want to see it. I want to see it so bad. But sorry, guys. The understanding of how they approach range is very good for those of us who are fighting anything thrust-based. Arcing shots work just like hooks, but for range, so if you are a fencer, a spearman, certain types of knife fighting, looking into how boxing works is really, really a great reference, especially if you're primarily an English speaker. And there are certain things that just drive me absolutely bonkers. And one of the ones that will always, to a level, set me off and make me think dramatically less of any individual who makes this claim on the field is when people come up to me and, Nick, why do you mention boxing? Boxing isn't a martial art. It's just two guys punching each other. Because according to a lot of them, if you aren't using your legs, it's not a martial art. To a lot of people, if it's not from, it's only a martial art if it's from the proper region of Southeast Asia. Otherwise, it's just sparkling pugilism, And you hear, you hear this level of egotism, and you'll hear the same thing when Western martial artists are looking at Eastern weapon styles. Sometimes you'll hear a lot of the katana fanboys, get into that too, which I find funny because it's like, so are you doing Aido? Jitsu. There are a few different major overarching styles of katana that's not all the same. And a lot of the weapons actually shifted towards the end. I want to say it's the Meiji era to fight more like, to handle more like kendo swords because they wanted to mimic the styles that people were learning. So you have in an Eastern parallel to what happened with the spadroon being developed for the young officers who were not trained in saber, but instead spent most of their time behind a foil or a small sword, because culturally they found the saber to be barbaric. I find that fascinating, that the same thing kind of happens. Where the police, especially at that time in Japan, because they were few and far between, were a lot of their fighting was rooted in consistent kendo training. And it's interesting to see how the sport training is mirrored in the practical defensive training of police, of military, and how these two entities go back and forth. And I enjoy watching the historical fads of this martial art is the real martial art. And this martial art is now it's not. I actually heard, and I believe now that I realize where it came from, it's even funnier. But karate described as the Dane Cook of martial arts by a gentleman. Yes, it was fiction, but I've heard sentiments like that. You really learn Krav Maga, or you really learn BJJ, and what I find is most people that you encounter when you're having the early stages of cross-training discussion come with a natural loyalty to the style and the school that they learn from. And it doesn't matter if it's the greatest sword master or what martial arts master in the world, or the McDojo down the street that gives you, a slushie with every black belt. But watching people have to go through that process always intrigues me, because you see the same thing in HEMA or SCA, WMA circles, where the people who've studied a specific style. Oh yes, McDojo is very much a term. But the idea of having to prove that their style is superior, and that's natural. That is where a lot of the greatest advances in martial arts have come from, either necessity, great inspiration, or two practitioners of different styles getting to know each other and kind of sparring and figuring it out, and occasionally imbibing certain substances. It's interesting to see how many times that's happened. But it has to be tested. So what needs to be available whenever possible are neutral grounds where you can agree on conventions, rules of the list that everybody can agree on, and then they add their own rules that they bring for themselves. And what do I mean by that? If I'm sparring Swords Age, we know if we're wearing masks, headshots are our game. If we're not, it's a different kind of situation. Relative touch calibration, we don't need to blast each other too hard. If there's blade contact, for the most part, we claim it. Now he would be fighting in a Jin-based style. I'd be fighting in a rapier-based style. It's the origin of both our styles. And that means I'm going to move a certain way, he's going to move a certain way, and we wouldn't really cross over unless it's been a while and we start to pick up each other's motions. And that's where the easiest way to think of it, again, is cooking. Yeah. because you learn the recipes of your youth. And then hopefully you get out there and you experience new food styles, new preparations. Yes, thesis. This is a very old term. McDojo is an old term, but it is still accurate. And really, there's some great videos on looking up how to tell if you have a McDojo or not. But when you have two cooking styles, we'll just make it Tex-Mex. You have American, the way the Texans were cooking. You have the way the Mexicans were cooking, and it blended into something not the same as either's. Asian fusion. You find Asian fusion, Asian food crossing over with, again, Mexican food a lot on the West Coast because you have a lot of Asian immigrants and you have a lot of Mexican immigrants. And ironically, though they are both from different parts of the world, they're both from often less financially affluent regions, and the source of their food traditions are definitely less affluent, and hot regions. So spicing becomes very important. And when you get, and if you can handle it, you get somebody who's a good friends with someone who does Thai food and somebody who does Mexican food, and they get together and you get some really interesting, unique dishes that are a new category born of both influences. This is the exact process of martial arts birth and decline, because martial arts, as they intermix, can become diluted into oblivion, or little tiny artifacts in how one blocks may pop up. And by crossing these lanes, guys, it makes everyone involved better. It really does. And I'm sorry you're in pain and it's making you goofy, but it was fine. No worries. Just because there is that balance of new to you is not new to a concept, but also the concept is new to them. So it's neat to see. So I got a little dehydrated out there and a little blood sugar low. So I ate before the show, but it's only now just coming up. So why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about all of this? It comes down to progression. Now, if you start a style blank, you will eventually come to the understanding of any style that fluidity is important. But you need to work towards it, and you need to recognize when you have it and when you're lacking it, which can be very hard. Age, injury, footing, just the footing of where you're training, nerves can all sap your fluidity. But if you are a new person coming into a style, and I deal with people who have a diverse background, obviously, just look at my chat. One of the important concepts is to keep aware in the back of your mind, not just what you're learning and what you're practicing, but how you're learning it and how you're practicing it. It is a level of mindfulness that takes time to develop, but you will find it across any learned art certainly any learned martial art, including modern weapons handling. To give a firearms-based parallel, if you ever have the pleasure, watch videos of Karen Tactical training someone for a 3-gun, especially pistol, because he talks about, it's not just how you're, how fast you're drawing your gun and getting on sight. It's where are you pulling it from? Is everything fit? Does it flow? Are you anchored properly? If you're not anchored properly, it won't work. But it's not just getting to the end, it's how you get there. And you'll watch him just tweak these subtle, elbow down a little bit. Okay, see how that goes? Now it's out of your way. Understanding these things is something that many people don't even realize is done. In the modern military, at least in the modern American Army, for sure, and I'm certain in the others, but I was watching a special on them. The process of going from I am prone, laid out on the ground, firing a rifle, to I am up and moving is very carefully refined to be insanely efficient. And there are tweaks to it. I'll admit I could not pull that off. I don't have the upper body strength, a few things, nerve control to do a lot of that. But I was watching it and I was fascinated by how fast and how explosive and how controlled it has to be for a person who is in an engagement to go from being prone to being up and doing what they're doing, and moving for cover or advancing or whatever they're doing. This mentality of understanding the process really gets into things, whether we want to talk, process engineering, ergonomics, things like that. It's interesting. And this is why I love to ask the question, why? And I really dislike the answer because that's how we've always done it. That's going to just send that little spasm of agony like a dental drill through me. It's one of the worst things I can ever hear. We've always done it that way. Why? And you'll find a lot of that in, especially in Eastern martial arts, because a great many of them were rebuilt or reverse engineered from dubious, sometimes, and sometimes incredibly accurate sources to become what they are today. Likewise with the Western martial arts. It's interesting to watch. And yes, I don't believe I have to say this, but I often have to. Western martial arts, the use of medieval through Renaissance and even ancient weapons in the West was just as studied and refined in its own way as what happened in the East. If you look, there are people who've spent years studying the proper way that the Swedish Vikings fought, how they integrated the shield use, how they integrated their offhand use, what strikes fell where, what areas were targeted. And to many people, they think of a Viking and they get the horned helmet guy just cleaving his way with an axe, or the braided, tattooed guy with way too much leather that doesn't make a lot of sense and eyeliner in a kind of dimmed setting, the way Mexico always looks yellow on films. They use like a yellow filter. I think they use like a blue kind of dirty filter whenever they're filming medieval stuff to make it look more medieval. But there's this illusion that it wasn't studied. And what happens is the weapons and arms are always developing. So the styles are always developing. And what you get is you'll get parallel development, where two completely no contact cultures developed almost the same weapon that fought almost the same way. Or you'll get, the evolution of armor kept improving, so weapons went from wanting to cut and slash to more impact and pierce, and split armor and mail, to, here's the firearm and it punches through plate, so there's no point wearing plate. Let's do something else. And since they're not wearing that weapon, that armor, that weaponry doesn't make sense. So you see weapons come and go and kind of alternate. And it's funny because you will see the same weapon almost being reborn every so often. Like the Celtic leaf blade just loves to come back up. As styles and stuff merge and contract and shift to match armor, the weapons change with it, and thus the style changes with it, because the style should match the weapon. And but to put a thing into it, just like I approached fencing with the mentality that I want to work on what every fencing style that I'm reading agree on, what points of agreement, because that means it works. It's important. If every single style is saying you want to do this, well, then it's probably a really good idea. Now, what they argue about, then you look at things like body type, weapon type, setting, situation, and you get to quibble, do I like this, do I not? And it starts to become taking from learning a style to learning how you fight and tailoring it to you. Because I am not in the business of mass-produced martial arts. There are several mass-produced martial arts that can be quite effective. The Chinese have had different ones for the military because they needed a martial art that they could teach as quickly as possible to as many people as possible, that is as effective as possible. And you get very interesting things there. But because my students, and because of the people I associate with, being that they are often having to work around non-standard limitations or different body types. And it's not always what you think. Taking a very large, very heavy-set, hybrid-looking person and helping them find a way to fence delicately, at times felt like a bit like trying to teach a bull to ballet. It doesn't, it's not easy, but wow, is it impressive if you can pull it off. And learning that is a point makes a challenge for me. Because for me, I hate to say it, somebody like Al, for example, is somebody who is a very, how do I want to put this, naturally effective body type. Al's slender, Al's strong, Al's tall enough not to be short, and fairly graceful. Actually, quite graceful. It's annoying. Al could pick up any of the styles, basically, and not have to do a lot of tailoring to work for him because he's in that sort of physical sweet spot. Now, when I'm working with someone who's a female and a biological female, and I'm saying that because I do work with trans folks sometimes, I have to go, well, I understand your identity, your wrists and hips and skeletal structure are still manifesting in the way in a female persuasion. It means you have to fight differently. Someone who is very short has to fight differently than someone who is average or tall or exceptionally tall. Exceptionally tall people at the high end of the spectrum have to learn a very different approach. And something strange happened to me. And it's what sort of the root, and to bring us fully around, because people ask me, how can you train so many different body types, so many different mentalities, and so many different limitations? How can you make this all work in different weapon styles? And honestly, it took me a while to figure out, because I knew I was doing something because I could make it work. And there are things that are so obvious to you, sometimes you don't recognize the methodology. And the methodology that is universal to everyone, every single human who picks up a melee weapon, is this. You have to know your dimensions of movement. You have to know your reach. You have to know your measure, your stride, how far you move in a step. And you have to know all the stop points. You have to understand, my arm will only go up this high over here, and it will go up this high over here. You have to learn that. And once you have found that, you have to be able to navigate moving your weapon and yourself through space in the most efficient, in the most energy efficient. So by shortest path of travel, energy efficient by the least amount of energy expended necessary, accurate to get there. And that all blends into one single concept, one core concept that you are manifesting. And that, my friends, is fluidity. The ability to move from one position to the other. And I believe fluidity is a moving form of beauty. And my definition of beauty is an object, action, or aspect is beautiful when adding to it or taking from it lessens its overall impact, effectiveness, etc. What does that? So this is why I can find women of various different body types attractive, or why I can find men of various different body types physically attractive. I can do that. I'm an artist. It isn't necessarily a perfection. It's theirs. When you look at somebody and there's nothing I would change. Because to change anything would not only not improve them, but it would rend them into something else. And since they're not authentic to themselves, they would become something, in my opinion, lesser. So when you're drilling, and especially when you are teaching for the folks out there in my chat and Points Beyond, thank you so much, by the way. When you're teaching, teach slowly. Teach controlled. And do not allow panic, excitement, or anger to throw you off that. There is a rhythm to be found. And when you find that rhythm, that speed of action and direction, it will all come together. And it does not matter if you are throwing a perfect rapier thrust or you're splitting a log. Because if you are splitting a log and you using proper form, it will be more effective and aesthetically pleasing. And that's something we both need to see and recognize the absence of in ourselves as easily as we recognize the absence of it in others. And instead of abusing ourselves for not having that, many of you will come on, I am too clumsy, I am too fat, or I am too skinny, or I am too shaky, or I am too weak. In some cases, I am too strong to do that. This is not the point. The point is never to assault yourself and demean yourself. You are always looking for development forward. And berating yourself is just a waste of time. It is not bonito. Acknowledge your faults, your strengths, and your weaknesses. Learn to play to your strengths, to diminish your weaknesses, and through perception and wisdom, seek out and exemplify the pursuit of fluidity. As Bruce Lee said, you must become water. And understanding how to flow and how to stop really is what's going to take you from being a practitioner towards mastery. And that's what I want for you guys. I want you guys to be able to have that. I know you can recognize it. I know if I said there is a rope dart practitioner, now mind you, hers are often on fire, but she is a performer by the name of Flo Mayhem. And if you look at her actions and look at the way she handles the rope and the dart and her surroundings, there is a great, simple elegance that is beneath the image. And I think it's important to pursue that, to recognize it in ourselves and each other, and help move towards it. Because I believe investing in learning to do something smoothly and fluidically with literal refinement. Remember, refinement is simply taking the parameters of how you do a task, whatever it is, perform music, dance, make food, make clothing, it doesn't matter. But you're taking the parameters of how it can be and narrowing them. That is how one becomes refined. You are purifying the motion, the action. And part of it is a subset of perfection, which means it is to always be pursued, but would be a tragedy if ever caught. Because there will always be something about it you can improve, whatever you're doing. And the road that improvement is on is paved with determination and shaped with fluidity. And with that, guys, we've got a little bit of notice. Thesis has a new video up. Good for you. And Flo Mayhem is amazing. I learned a few tricks from her. I bet you did, Kitty. I realize I don't think I've actually got to see you perform. I would love to see a demonstration of your techniques. Perhaps we can set up some kind of video thing, or you could send something to myself or Thesis, and we can work on improving it. But have a great night, all. Yes, please. Guys, do your drills, keep your guard up, be kind to yourself and each other, and as always, thank you for supporting your local Swordmaster. I will be back next week at the same time for some more content. Actually, no, I will not. I almost forgot. Yes, I will not be back next week. Next week, there will not be a broadcast live. I will endeavor to have a pre-recorded something as a boon, because I will be setting up at this time for StompCon. And I hope to see you all there. Those of you who could make it in the region, please spread the word around if you can. I would appreciate it greatly. Thanks to everybody who participated in the chat. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you all very soon, likely on my other channel, the Nicholas Tuckert channel, for Never Mind the Furthermore, Monday. At 10 a.m. Eastern. Till then, toodles, folks. I love you, and you should too.